Hello there, you lovely person you. I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today we're checking out the Nothing Phone 2. One of the most hotly anticipated smartphones of 2023. Now the Nothing Phone 2 will not replace the original phone, as this is a more premium device for those who want extra features and a bit more grunt in a slightly sexier setup. This does also mean, unfortunately, there's been a bit of a price hike. So if you were hoping that the Nothing Phone 2 would cost about the same as the original, you might want to sit down a bit and quaff a couple of stiff scotches. All good? Good. The Nothing Phone 2 will cost you from £579 here in the UK, rising to 699 quid depending on which model you want, how much memory and storage basically. But that's enough banging on, let's whip the Nothing Phone 2s on out of the boxes, check out the specs, the new features, all that good stuff. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So Nothing has very kindly sent me both colour variants for the new Nothing Phone 2, white and dark grey. It's the same box design as before, so basically you're supposed to tear the buggers apart. And there she blows, the Nothing Phone 2. But what else do you get chucked inside of the box besides the phone? Well, first up, you've got Nothing's snazzy new CC charging cable. As you can see there, it's semi-transparent, just the tip. And apparently it's also super durable, so hopefully it won't break on you anytime soon. You've also got yourself a snazzy see-through pokey pin device, and some highly thrilling safety information and warranty info. And that's everything. Once again, no adapter, no protective condom case or anything. And the dark grey model is exactly the same. You don't get a dark grey charging cable or anything, it's the same white stuff you get with the white model. Alrighty, it's Nothing Phone 2 all set up, ready to rock. And let's start by having a squint at the design, and at a quick glance, not much seems to have changed up from the original Nothing Phone. We're certainly talking subtle refinements here. We've once again got an iPhone-esque finish with those chunky flat edges, a metal frame stretching the entire circumference. Although thankfully we do not have an iPhone style notch or dynamic floater or whatever they call it these days. Just a dinky wee selfie orifice now centrally positioned. Reasonably skinny bezels surrounding that mighty 6.7 inch display. And then flip it over and once again you have that transparent glass back end. This time though it is ever so subtly and slightly curved at the edges, just tapers off there before it hits the metal frame. Does make the Nothing Phone 2 feel a wee bit nicer in the hand. Certainly still looks sleek. You've got slightly more complicated glyph action around back now, but more on that later. And once again a dual lens camera setup, slightly jutting out of the arse there. And a subtle bit of branding tucked away in the corner. And you've got a choice of two colours for the Nothing Phone 2, either white like last year or the fresh new dark grey effort. I definitely like the white model, that was my preferred option last year, so I picked that up for the Nothing Phone 1. But I gotta say, there is something about this dark grey model which really draws me to it, probably because it's the same colour as my soul. I just think it looks very sleek, possibly one of the best looking phones of 2023. Only problem with that arse end is it does pick up greasy prints and scuffy marks rather easily. Mind it is a big one at 6.7 inches and pretty hefty at just over 200 grams as well. So you'll certainly feel the bugger when it's lodged in your pocket, and when it comes to saving the planet, Nothing is certainly trying its best right there as well. You've got 100% recycled aluminium stuffed inside of the Nothing Phone 2, and several of the other components are recycled as well, bits of copper, bits of steel. That packaging which I annihilated back at the start of the video is recycled. So if you buy a Nothing Phone 2, Greta might give you a bit of a thumbs up. And the Nothing Phone 2 is reasonably hardy. You've got Gorilla Glass protecting that display. Nothing wasn't very specific on which version, but I believe it's 5. But regardless, you've also got a pre-installed screen protector to keep that display in tippy-top condition. And the phone is IP54 splash and dust resistant, so it can get a bit moist, but don't go dropping it in a bubble bath. Something like that. It's not quite as good as some rivals like the Pixel 7a, but a little bit of reassurance. But which model is your favourite, the white or the dark grey? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments on that one. If you're team dark grey, then definitely treat yourself to a nice cold beer, because you're obviously right. If you're team white, then feel free to call me a in the comments and clue me in as to why I'm so wrong. Now when you want to actually use your Nothing Phone 2, it is an in-display fingerprint sensor to wake the bugger up. This is positioned right down here at the bottom end of the Nothing Phone 2, so it is a wee bit awkward to use, but nothing terrible. Just need a slightly dexterous thumb, or just to be not as old and arthritic as myself. And you do always have Face Unlock as a backup option. And then you'll be greeted with this or something similar to this. I've spent a bit of time setting it up. But what you've got is Android 13 with, of course, Nothing OS 2.0.0 slapped on top. And first thing you'll probably notice is it's a little bit monochrome in it. Not much colour going on there. And that's apparently a conscious decision from Nothing to make the screen less distracting, less, ooh, that's a shiny, colourful icon. I'll just prod on that and waste half an hour doom scrolling through whatever. But don't worry if you're not a fan of Nothing's aesthetics, because you can have a more stock Android setup if you prefer. You got that choice when you set up the Nothing phone too. As before, you've got a heavy lean on widgets. Nothing has added quite a few of its own, and you've got all the standard Android fare as well. And you've also now got much greater customization when it comes to the folders. The always on display has also been improved. You can now add lots of handy widgets and toggles to that bad boy. Apps open faster, everything looks that little bit slicker, and then of course there's the Glyph shenanigans around back. And those flashy disco lights are now even more customizable than they were on the original Nothing phone. But I'm not going to bang on any more about Nothing OS 2.0.0 in this video, because I've done you a full tips and tricks and best new features guide in a separate video, so definitely go check that out if you want to know more about the software side. But what I will say before we move on though is that Nothing is rather generously offering 3 OS updates and 4 years of security updates. Those updates rolling through every couple of months for the lifespan of the Nothing phone too. So as far as investments go, it's a good, and at least you know it's not going to be defunct in about a year or two. On the storage front, well, how much of that you get depends on how much money you chuck at Nothing. The base model is 128 gigs. This is the middle model, the 256er. Does go all the way up to 512 gigs, though, half a frickin' terabyte if you happen to shoot a lot of video on your phone, download an awful lot of Netflix. Sadly, not expandable via micro SD, though you've only got space for 2 SIMs in that double-sided SIM tray. So if you think you're going to need a good bit of storage and you can't be arsed with constant backing up, well, definitely try and get one of those higher models. So now let's have a squint at that 6.7-inch OLED display, and early impressions are, it looks like a bit of a stunner. 2412 by 1080 pixel Full HD resolution. You got yourself HDR10 Plus support. And this panel is brighter than the original Nothing phone. It now peaks at 1600 nits apparently. Nice wide viewing angles, and as I mentioned before, that selfie orifice is now centrally positioned but barely intrudes on the action when you do go full screen. And quite impressively for this sort of price point, the Nothing Phone 2 sports an LTPO OLED display. What that means is the refresh rate can scale all the way down to just 1 Hz when it's just displaying a static image. Quite good for the old battery life, and it can boost all the way up to 120 Hz now. Really good for supported apps when you're flicking through the menus, etc. And you've also got yourself a stereo speaker setup. And on this week's episode, we yank out our tech telescope and have a proper squint at the upcoming Nothing Phone 2. And by tech telescope, yes, I do mean my penis. Pretty beefy stuff, and of course if you dive on into the audio settings, you've got that enhanced Dirac audio for external audio devices when you hook up some headphones or speakers. And of course if you stay on brand with a pair of Nothing earbuds, you've got full control over those. So now let's have a shufty at the performance, and the Nothing Phone 2 has Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset crammed inside, as we've all known for quite some time now. And that's backed by buckets of RAM, either 8 or 12 gigs of the stuff, again depending on how much money you hoy at call pay. And unfortunately I can't benchmark or test the gaming or anything on the Nothing Phone 2 just yet until the full reviews embargo lifts in a couple of days. But that 8 Plus Gen 1 was of course the brains behind some of the biggest flagship smartphones of just a few months ago. So you can certainly expect a nice fluid experience. Games like Genshin Impact should play with a perfect frame rate even on higher graphics settings. As I say, more on all of that for my full review. As for the battery, well, that's now bigger than before as well. You've got a 4700 mAh capacity cell. And again, I can't discuss the battery life of the Nothing Phone 2 until that full reviews embargo lifts, although at this point I've only been using it for 24 hours. So kind of limited in what I could divulge. But my SIM is slapped in there. I've got over a week until the reviews embargo lifts, so when that does hit, you'll have my full final frank opinion on that. What I can say though is that the wired charging has improved for the Nothing Phone 2. You've got 45 watt charging now. So according to Nothing, that should power this bad boy back up in under an hour. And you've also got 15 watt wireless charging, same as last year's model. Which brings us neatly onto the camera, and the hardware has again changed up for the Nothing Phone 2. So now the main sensor is Sony's 50 megapixel IMX890 with optical image stabilization built in. So it's the same setup as the OnePlus Nord 3, which is also the same setup as that flagship OnePlus, the 11. Now the camera UI will look very familiar to anyone who's used last year's Nothing phone. Got a handful of different options, including standard video and slow-mo. You've got the auto photo mode, you've got portrait, time-lapse pano, macro, and a bit of expert action if you want to manually fiddle with those controls. And that right there is one of the main differentiators between the Nothing camera and of course the Pixel and the iPhone. And while I can't critically discuss the camera performance of the Nothing Phone 2 just yet, not until that ruddy reviews embargo lifts, I can at least share some stills that I've shot with the Nothing Phone 2 in my first 24 hours. Nothing says that it's upgraded the image processor, so now photos should offer improved clarity and more natural tones. And you've also got more advanced HDR photo capture now with 8 levels of exposure rather than just 3 as in the original Nothing phone. And as well as that fresh new primary sensor, you've also got a 50 megapixel Samsung GN1 ultra wide angle shooter. That's the same tech as last year's model. And if we have a wee squint at the video as well, you'll now see that you can shoot 4K resolution footage at 60 frames per second. And that is with both the primary sensor and that ultra wide angle shooter. And if we flip to the front, you've now got an upgraded 32 megapixel selfie shooter. It's an IMX715 sensor. And again, here's a stunning selection of stills of my slightly crinkly mug. I hurriedly snapped around the old homestead, but plenty more of these where this stuff came from. Again, that full review coming in just a couple of days, so definitely make sure you poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell to be the first to see when that goes live. And that right there, my friends, in a lovely wee nutshell, is the fresh new Nothing Phone 2. So as I say, a lot of upgraded hardware and some fresh new software slapped on there, but at a more hefty price than the original Nothing phone. So it kind of depends on your priorities which one you might want to go for. I will be doing you a full Nothing Phone 1 versus Nothing Phone 2 comparison video as well. That'll be going live at the same time as that review. In the meantime, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on the Nothing Phone 2 down below. Are you tempted? Are you going to upgrade from the Nothing Phone 1? Could you not give any less f***s? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down there. I already did the subscribe and notifications thing, so all that remains to be said is have a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone. Love you.